כן. שמי באנגלית. My name is Graciela Zisman. I'm interviewing here Shaul Ladani in Omer, Israel. Today is September 28th, 2023. Let's go. Hi, can you tell us your name?
I am Shaul Ladani.
Can you talk a little bit about when were you born, about your parents, about your time when you were a child, and the city where you were born?
I was born in Belgrade, Yugoslavia, on April the 2nd, 1936. My parents were from the Hungarian part of Yugoslavia. My father was a chemical engineer, educated in Germany in Karlsruhe, and a patent attorney. And my mother studied first year of law until she was able to catch my father.
Do you know how they met each other?
I don't know. I don't know.
Where did they meet? In which town?
They lived as they got married in Belgrade, and we had our own villa that my father has built, and in the same, that was a modern villa with 2 floors in the basement, and one on the lower floor. My grandparents, the parents of my father lived, and we lived on the second floor.
Okay, so your family lived together with your grandparents, with one side of your grandparents?
With my grandparents, yes.
And when were you born exactly?
April the 2nd, 1936.
Do you remember?
And I had a sister that was 2.5 years older than me.
So you have one sister?
At that time I had one sister. Later on, my parents adopted a cousin of mine that her parents were massacred by Hungarian soldiers.
I see. So you grew up with 2 kind of siblings, 2 sisters?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember your time when you were little? What do you remember of the time before the war?
First, I remember very little, because the World War II broke out, from my point of view, in 41 on the 6th of April, and just that was after my 5th birthday. I remembered that we lived a middle class type of life. We had a cleaning lady that lived in our house, and I had a nanny that lived also in our house. The nanny was from a German tribe that lived in those parts of Europe, Totes. There were 2 really German tribes in that part of Europe, the Schwabs and the Totes. So she was a Tot, and up to that age 5 already, I spoke 3 languages. With my parents, I spoke Hungarian. With the outside world, children in the neighborhood. I spoke the Serb language,
Serbic.
and with the nanny I spoke German.
Wow. So since you were very young, you spoke 3 languages.
Three languages.
3 languages, yeah.
Three languages.
And what was your name? Was your name Shaul?
No. Since when I was born, already it was clear that Jews might have to move from one place to the other and so on. So my parents tried to give me a name that has its very close or almost similar equivalent in several languages. They gave me first, since that was Yugoslavia, they gave me a Serb name which was Pavle, but they called me the Hungarian equivalent, and the nickname for that Hungarian equivalent is Poli.
Poli?
But they immediately, when they spoke with the others in German language, they said Paul. So as in my birth certificate, which is in Serbian, it is written Pavle. And you know, you have names like Pavel. These are all the same names, and even Shaul is the historical equivalent of that same name.
Oh, really? How did your parents call you? What name do they use to call you in an endearing way?
Poli.
Okay.
But the official name in Hungarian is Pál. But like for Richard or they say Dick.
That's right.
That's for Poli in Hungarian. For Pál in Hungarian, the name that they usually call is Poli.
I see. So how many years since you were born did you live in that house that you with your grandparents and your parents?
It was in 41 when we were bombed first times.
The first time you moved?
Sorry?
In 41, what happened?
Germany suddenly attacked Yugoslavia by starting first simultaneously to bomb strategic places with airplanes, and they entered from Austria. They entered with ground forces. And we were in our house. My father was not with us because he was already for several months called for reserved military service as in the Yugoslav Army's engineering corps.
Wow.
And I remember that once we all went, my father was missing, but his parents were with us, and my mother's cousin that lived not far away with her husband, they were also with us. We went down on the basement level. We had a laundry room, and adjacent to it, we had a big basement. The neighbors around our villa considered our house much stronger than their houses, modern reinforced concrete built building. So they decided to try to find protection as a shelter from the bombing in the big basement in our house. We were in the laundry room. I remembered once a huge noise. The house was shaken. My grandmother fell on me to protect me. The steel door of the laundry room was knocked out of its hinges, fell on grandmother, but besides some bruises to her, nothing really happened. A bomb from an airplane fell diagonally on our house. We were not a strategic target, nevertheless, a bomb fell on our house diagonally, entered the second floor, the first floor, into the basement, the big basement.
You were like 5 years old at that time?
5 years old.
Wow.
I remember it was 5 years and 4 days.
You remember?
Such a thing you cannot
don't
forget. And what happened really, that bomb that penetrated the big basement, killed several of the neighbors that tried to find refuge there from the bombing. My grandfather tried to start my father's Skoda car that there in the we had also at the basement level the garage of for his car, but since the car was not in use now for several months, the battery was empty. He was unable to start the car, so we left by foot by the building and went over through a kind of a park to the house of friends of my parents.
And how long did you stay there?
We stayed there maybe 1 day.
1 day.
1 day, and then they all decided to leave the place and try to escape to a village outside of Belgrade. And we got there. That I don't remember, but I heard so many times from my mother that as they started to walk in darkness toward that village, convoys of Yugoslav soldiers that passed by shouted on her that she should remove the white sweater that I was wearing because it might detect us to the German airplanes.
Wow. So did you leave for the next village and you left everything behind, or you?
Everything behind.
Everything, you didn't take anything?
Everything behind. When I said we left, that includes the maid and the nanny.
They stay behind too?
They were with us. They were for Bani, a peasant at that village that we arrived, allowed us to stay in his barn. And then after maybe a few days, they sent the maid back to Belgrade, and she came back saying that it is quiet in Belgrade. The German military is ruling Belgrade. So my mother and grandparents decided we should go back to Belgrade. We went back to Belgrade, and we were in the house, but not since it was partly in ruin. Not totally, but you know, partly. My father had in the center of Belgrade his office, the patent attorney's office, and we went there, and probably, that's my assumption, they were waiting that somehow my father might be able to find us and join us. As the Germans attacked Yugoslavia, the government surrendered, the military disintegrated. My father was on the Albanian front, where they were fighting generally. The Yugoslav military was fighting the Italians there on the Albanian front. My father was with his engineering corps building the pontoon bridges. As the military disintegrated, his unit also, he started to ride his horse from there.
He told you all this?
Pardon?
He told you all this?
Yes.
He did.
He started to ride his horse north until the horse was unable to move. Then, since news about what the Germans have done at other places earlier, much earlier, probably reached them, he and also many other officers, he bought from a peasant clothes, civilian clothes, to get rid of his Yugoslav officer's uniform, and by various ways, hitchhiking or so, he reached the town of Niš, where already the trains started to move. He got on a train toward Belgrade, but he and some others feared that if they arrive, and when they arrive to the railway station to Belgrade, there the Gestapo will meet them, and they will immediately recognize on their faces that they are officers officers, and it's very easy that they find out that he is a Jew, and therefore he and some others decided that prior that the train gets to the final station at a curve where the train slows down, to jump off the train. And he jumped off the train. He got some, he was not really injured, and he managed to walk up to our house.
To where you were with your family? To
the house. He's seen that the house is partially in ruin. Ah. It was not totally, but some walls were damaged. But he started to cry. But some neighbors told them that we are alive, and that we are in his office in the center of the city. As there was a night curfew, just in the morning, he came to the office, and there he joined us. There we met. At that time, immediately on the walls of Belgrade, the German military has posted big posters in big fonts, Gothic letters in German, with 2 paragraphs. First paragraph: all Jews have to report on a certain day, a certain hour, at a certain place. Second paragraph: Jews not obeying the orders will be shot. Plainly.
Clear and
plain. Will be shot. My father and my grandfather had to decide what to do. They decided to disobey the orders and try to escape from Belgrade to those areas where my parents were born, the Hungarian parts of Yugoslavia, that at the end of World War I, prior to World War I, they belonged to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Hungarian part, but at the end of World War I, they were attached to the newly formed country of Yugoslavia. Now, the same areas were returned back again to Hungary.
I see.
And it were what separated those areas from Belgrade just was the Danube River. So it was possible to try to cross to those areas, but the bridges were already destroyed, but the barges were crossing it. But there was an additional risk that on the Hungarian part, the border, not control, but the Hungarian military units, border control units will patrol, and if they meet us, if they discover that we are Jews, they might shoot us, and if even if not shot us, then return us to the hands of the Germans in Belgrade, which meant the same. My parents took the risk among the two bad possibilities, and decided to try to escape to those Hungarian areas. I remember they told me not to speak any other languages, just Hungarian. Because I spoke both Serbian and German. And I remember that as as I told you, I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
We reached the Hungarian side of the Danube with those barges. Immediately we were met with the Hungarian soldiers, and my grandfather went in front of us. He had a big mustache, like in Israel later on, sergeant majors used to have such mustache,
Yeah.
but such mustaches also many Hungarians had. And he went in front, and when he said that retired Hungarian railway station manager Ladany is returning homeland. That made the trick. They did not ask. Did not ask any questions. And look, Ladany is a Hungarian name, and he said it in Hungarian, so it made the trick. We got to the town where my mother was born, and
do you remember the name? Do you remember the name of the town?
Yes, the Hungarian name used to be Újvidék, the Serbian name Novi Sad.
Okay.
Today, Novi Sad is the second biggest city of Serbia. And her parents, my mother's parents, so the maternal grandparents lived there, and also sisters lived there. We were accepted there, but the grandparents, maternal grandparents, said we are too close to the old borders. We should try to get further from there. We went to the next city where my father's parents lived before, and we got there. We stayed there with relatives, but in a place where in between two streets, we stayed there inside, but my father several times went out, and he was recognized and taken to kind of a prison.
Oh.
Yeah, kind of a prison. His mother, my grandmother, went to a police officer there. The name of that town in Hungarian Hungarian name was Szabadka, the Serbian name Subotica. And she went to a police officer that was a schoolmate of my father, and with his help he was released.
That's good.
It happened twice. Then the family decided that it should be much safer to get further away. My parents or my father would be not recognized. We got obviously accompanied but by a gentle person up to Budapest. Up to Budapest, and we got some false papers where the fact that we are Jews will still stay in it, but the Yugoslav citizenship was eliminated from it.
Oh.
My parents rented an apartment, and my father immediately got employment with the biggest Hungarian pharmaceutical concern.
Wow.
And also, after the usual working hours, worked at other patent attorneys' offices that he had business contracts with them for years before. And so we have been there.
In Budapest.
In Budapest.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that at one point of time in 42, we got there in 41. In 42, sometimes around January 42, my mother started to cry, cry and cry and cry, almost non-stop. Later on, they brought to us 2 children, one of my age and a baby of 6 months.
Girls?
Girls. Later on, I heard the story. A Hungarian general entered with his division into the town of Novi Sad, Újvidék, with a list of the Jews and their addresses. Early in the mornings, his soldiers went to those addresses, took out the Jews from their houses, brought them to the strand on the Danube. That was what I'm saying, January, the water was frozen, made a big hole in the ice, and started to shoot the Jews one after the other.
To fall on the hole in the ice.
And the corpses fell into that hole through there in the water under the ice. The the news about the massacre reached up to Budapest. That was in Újvidék, Novi Sad, and it reached the ears of a member of the parliament who was a liberal member of the parliament, who was a noble person by title and also by behavior. Graf Wojciech Zieliński. He went to the leader or ruler of Hungary, Horthy, Miklos Horthy, and demanded from him that he should give an order to stop the massacre. And Horthy indeed accepted the demand, sent some officers by a car to Újvidék, Novi Sad, and when they arrived, they stopped the massacre. But by that time, close to 2,000 of the Jews of Novi Sad were already massacred.
2,000, you said?
About 2,000. My mother's parents that lived in the same city were taken also there to the Strand, but and they were standing there. The order for the stopping of the massacre arrived before they were executed. And they have found in the houses of two of their daughters. Two of the daughters were married to two brothers, and they lived in a family house. They found the children hidden there.
4 children, or the girls only?
They found 3 really in the same house, beside the families of the two of their daughters. There was the family of the brother or the family of the sister of the two brothers also. So it was a 3-family house, and they found there 4 children.
4 children.
They have sent to us two girls, the one of my age and the 6-month-old baby. My parents adopted legally the 6-month-old baby later on, and told us and the people around us not to tell her about the adoption.
Not to say anything.
Because the other girl was of my age. She already knew what happened. And she went on trial to a cousin of my mother in Budapest that was childless and remained with them. Her name was Avi. The grandparents, my maternal grandparents, also sent us later on to Budapest some furniture that belonged to two of the daughters, and because we were refugees that had no our own furniture, so they brought they sent them to us. So we lived with those things since that time. The small baby that my parents adopted, Martha, stayed with us and was brought up as my sister. As my sister, and only when after that my father died in Israel in 1963, and she was after military service and a student at the Hebrew University, and she heard some rumors, she misinterpreted them. Only then it was told her really the real story, and she remained my sister. Up to now, daily we are speaking on the phone. The other girl that went to my mother's cousin in Budapest, later on, she survived with them. That's also a longer story. She later studied medicine at Sorbonne, France, and she became a doctor like her late father that was massacred.
I see.
And she is now living in Paris, married to an ex-Israeli.
Okay. So you have to...
and some of those of that furniture that my maternal grandparents sent to us are still with me.
Here?
Some of them is with my sister Martha that belonged to her parents.
I see.
But still with me, so that every piece of those in the house reminds me of my family that was massacred during the Holocaust.
Shaul, how about you during that time? Did you go to school? How about you? Did you go to school during? You keep moving from one place to another. What?
Very little. I can tell you the difference. Many years later on, I've been already at Ben Gurion University, a professor, and I was awarded a very prestigious award. I got a chair, cathedra, cathedra, and there is always a ceremony for awarding the chair, the cathedra. At that ceremony, a person has to, first to deliver a short lecture, or also to say a few things, and then officially that chair, that bears always a name of somebody that donated the money for the chair, is awarded to him. And at that ceremony, I started saying, both in humor, but also of being pride of what I am saying, that, and I said, you should know, I am now disclosing to you that you might not know, and you might change your mind of awarding me the chair, that I have never completed a high school education, and out of 8 years of, sorry, not high school, never finished an elementary education. Out of the 8 years of elementary schooling, I had only 4.5, and also those 4.5 years in 4 different languages.
Which were?
That were both in Hungarian, in Hungary, in Serbian, in Yugoslavia, in a little in Switzerland, in German, and a little in Hebrew in Israel. So I don't have a certificate of finishing elementary schooling. Nevertheless, without having those necessary documents, I was accepted later on into the high school. Had difficulties, but I excelled in the scientific subjects. Did not know English, did not know all the other subjects where Hebrew was needed, and here they teach in Israel a lot about the Bible and so on. Bible study, I had no idea. I succeeded and received a proper high school education finally. So I finished.
The high school education was in Israel?
In Israel, in Tel Aviv, at the private high school, Geula High School, Geula Street in the middle of Tel Aviv.
Yeah. I
did not live in Tel Aviv,
right.
But I traveled every day there with difficulties. Those I got, but the time of World War II really disturbed me to receive the proper elementary schooling education.
So let me go back a little bit. Between 42 and the end of the war, what was your journey? Where were you in after 42? You said you were in Switzerland?
No, first I would say that from Hungary, from Budapest, we were then deported to Bergen-Belsen. We have been in Bergen-Belsen about half a year.
And you were a little boy?
In 44, I was in Bergen-Belsen. And it is not a luxury camp.
It's not a what?
It is not a luxury recreation camp.
What do you remember from that experience at the camp? What do you remember from that experience at the camp?
I remember first the hunger, the rolls of coal every day in the wind, in the cold, in the wind, and for hours staying there outside the barracks until the counting was completed and fit whatever it should have been. I remembered how everything looked and the way of life. I can tell you 2 things that I remember that behind behind the 2 fences, we had the fence of a barbed wire fence and then there was a small small room between them, and then the electric fence. There they started to grow a small green tomato plant. And I remember how it started to grow, and then small green tomatoes started to appear on it. Later, the color of those tomatoes changed from green to yellowish, and later on they started to get the reddish color, and my eyes went out from eagerness to get those, went out of the, almost from the holes, eagerness to get and reach those unreachable tomatoes. That's one thing. By the way, I read many years later on also some diary, some others that were also in the same camp that we were in Bergen-Belsen. Also the story about the same tomato plant. So it's not my imagination. No. The second thing I can say that many years later on, already as a professor at Ben Gurion University, with my wife, we attended, we went to Denmark, to Copenhagen, to a scientific conference of mine, and we have been with a rented car, and we started to drive from there toward Frankfurt to get our plane back to Israel. And as driving on the highways in Germany, once we noted a black sign, a brown sign. Brown signs are signs for places of interest, and it was written on it, Gedenkstätte Bergen-Belsen, Memorial Site Bergen-Belsen. I said to my wife, look, I want to see how it looks now. Yeah. So we drove over to there. At that time, they had a small exhibition place there. Today, they have a much bigger museum there. And at that exhibition place, they had a relief map of the Bergen-Belsen camp, on which the various sub-camps were marked. I looked on it. They were marked: the Hungarian sub-camp, the Dutch sub-camp, and so on. And I looked on the markings and said to my wife, as they marked the fence of the Hungarian camp where I have been there, it's not as I remember it, that it was. I remembered somewhere differently. She said, if you think that is the important thing, go and report it. I was directed to the director of the place. And when I started to tell him, he asked me a few questions. How do I know that? I said, I have been there. Then he asked me how old I was at that time. I said about 8 and a half. And then he asked, how can you how can you remember so many years later on where the funds went? I said, I don't know how can I remember, but I remember. So he said, okay, we can check. On the wall, we have put on an aerial map that the Allies, or either the British or the Americans, had photographed the camp from airplanes. We can check. We went to that aerial map, and I have showed him the shadow of the fence where I said that it went. He looked on it and accepted that I am correct. I'm correct where the fence was and not as it is marked. This is the memory many years later on that was deeply rooted in my mind from age 8.5.
Amazing. Shaul, do you remember how you got to Bergen-Belsen? How did they take you? They deported you? How did you travel there? Where were your parents during that time?
I remember only the type of the wagons.
What?
The type of the wagons. So they were not passenger wagons, but these were wagons for animals.
Cows, yeah. Mm-hmm. So they take you from where you were. They came to pick you up from there. How did?
From a place in Hungary, an assembly place that was at the Columbus Street camp.
Wow.
Camp. From there we were taken.
And they put you on the train.
Put on the train. I remember that we stopped somewhere in Linz. In Linz, they said to take a shower.
Your parents were, excuse me, were your parents with you?
Pardon?
Your parents?
My parents were with us.
Okay.
And I remember that as we got there, prior to the shower, the actual showers before it, my father, I told you, a chemical engineer, and he used to various smells. He smelled, and I don't know whether it was whether he was really smelling, or he already heard various reports. You probably know that 2 Slovak Jews escaped from Auschwitz, managed to reach Slovakia back, wrote a report about what is going on in Auschwitz, and copies of those reports reached many places, including the desk of President Roosevelt. So such reports reached many places. They were not widely reported, but some people knew about it. Maybe even my father knew about it. I don't know, because he was active later on in Budapest in the Zionist movement there. Anyhow, as we got there in Linz to the shower where we took off the clothes or whatever, my father said gases. He smelled gases. Gas. It was a real shower.
It was a real shower.
It was a real shower. I heard again in some memoirs of others they mentioned the same thing. So it's not something imagination.
Right. So there was smell of gas, but it wasn't gas.
It was not the gas.
It was
But I'm saying, I don't know whether it was smell of gas or imagination.
your imagination. So they asked all of you to take a shower. You were there with your parents and your sisters too?
Yeah,
Your those two
I don't remember how it was exactly. I remember that only that statement.
Right, right. So what happened after the showers? Where did you go?
We arrived to Bergen-Belsen.
Okay. And you were there half a year, you said?
About half a year.
Do you remember the life there for those 6 months?
But
Do you remember how you survived there for 6
I
months?
know we were taken out in an exchange. And we arrived to Switzerland.
After 6 months, what happened during the 6 months? Do you remember much?
I told
Hunger,
you about the cold
the tomatoes
and so on.
and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Okay, so they were in exchange. You went to Switzerland, and
Yes.
that was in 1940.
We got there in 45.
45. With your parents.
Sorry, sorry, end of 44. End of
okay.
44.
With your parents. The
With my
exchange with your. What
yeah.
were your grandparents? Who were living with you?
It depends which grandparents, I will tell you.
Okay.
My paternal grandparents,
Yes.
they stayed in Budapest. They stayed in Budapest. They survived also. Then they were partially with my father's sister. They were also at that assembly camp and the Columbus Street camp.
I see.
And they survived. Also, there's a story. You know, Jews have all long different stories. My maternal grandparents, with some other cousins, were taken to Auschwitz, and they were gassed to death. The cousin of my mother that was with us in the laundry room in 41 in Belgrade, in Belgrade when we were bombed. She later on was taken also to Auschwitz, from Budapest, and by Mengele she was spared to work, and she worked in a place where they sorted the belongings of the Jews that left outside the outside the places prior that being gassed to their death.
I see.
And they have nicknamed that place as Canada. That's known. It's known. She has found there. She told us after the war. She has found there. The way that they used to, they brought in the luggages and so on, put them grouped together. Then somebody used to take the top luggage, started to open and started to sort out what was inside. She found the suitcase of my grandfather. So we know exactly on what day he was gassed there.
So you were taken with your family to Switzerland in an exchange.
In exchange, and in 45, my parents returned to Yugoslavia, to Belgrade.
After the war?
After the war.
In 45, they went back to Yugoslavia.
Yes.
From Switzerland with you.
Pardon?
With you.
With me.
And your two siblings, and your sisters.
Yes, yes,
okay. And what happened then, when you got there?
First, somebody was living in our villa. In some of the rooms that were not damaged. My father knocked on the door. As we got in, he said, "I'm the owner, I return." He let us in one of the rooms. And my parents then first renovated the house. My father also renovated. He had a chemical factory that manufactured what is called water glass. And I'm so sorry, I'm saying, and in 48 we made Aliyah, emigrated to Israel.
In 48, what made you decide to come to Israel? Or your parents? How was the decision? So you went from Switzerland back home in 45, and then in 48 you decided to come to Israel.
They went back to Yugoslavia from Switzerland,
right,
for two reasons. One, for search for living relatives. Second, to get back their property. And he got back some property, although then they started the factory was nationalized, but still my father worked as a scientist in one of the governmental or national governmental research institutes. So it's a very nice position, very nice living, even during the communist era. They even sent him on 2 or 3 times to other communist countries like Bulgaria and Romania. But the Jews that went through the Holocaust experience wanted to get rid of, get out of Europe, where there was nothing to protect them, nobody to protect them. So that the moment that the state of Israel was established, they all, or many of them, had the desire not only to get out of Europe, to get to their own country of the Jews. I don't know whether I ever told you, when my father in Israel took me to start my military service. He took me to report there, and he told me, "You were blessed with the opportunity to serve your own country, to serve a Jewish country." And he did not have to explain and elaborate what he meant.
You understood.
I knew it. By the way, I repeated the same words when I took my daughter to start her military service, when I took her here in Beersheba, to report for service. And when our biggest granddaughter started her military service, I repeated to her the same sentence.
That's wonderful.
I'm not saying that I loved ever the military service, but that's a need for Jews to have their own country to protect themselves.
Was it hard to come to Israel in 1948? Did you have trouble with papers? How did you get to Israel? How did you guys make it here?
Oh, it was very difficult. It was extremely difficult.
It was difficult.
Yeah. I can elaborate on that. Very difficult, but I can tell you that initially we did not have electricity, we did not have running water.
When you got here, when you got to Israel?
When you arrived to Israel. For quite maybe 2 years or more.
Really?
I had to go to pick water in buckets a mile away.
Wow.
And so,
where did you go the first place when you came?
We were taken to a Beit Olim.
Beit Olim.
Beit Olim. That's not a Mabara. Beit Olim.
Right.
They're just in a tent. In a tent, we were, I don't know, 6 people or 8 people in a tent. And later on, we were taken to the abandoned town of Lod.
Lod?
Lod, where we got an abandoned house, where I'm saying without electricity, without running water, a Turkish toilet in the yard behind us, and so on. And therefore, initially, I did not have schooling there or elementary schooling. So,
how did you come to Israel? By ship?
By ship.
By ship.
By the way, it's so that that was in 48. The ruler of Yugoslavia at that time, communist Tito. Tito did not want to let the Jews of Yugoslavia to live for Israel, but he had a friend, a communist friend, that during the royal times shared with him the same prison cell, because as communists, he was in exile with him, I believe in Russia also together, and Tito made this friend his deputy in the partisans, deputy commander of the partisans. And later on, much later on, he made him the speaker of the parliament of Yugoslavia. And the name of that friend, and I'm stating his name exactly as it was, Moshe Piade. Moshe, not Moses or something. Moshe Piade, obviously a Jew. And that Moshe Piade approached Tito and asked him or demanded him that to let the Jews that want to leave Yugoslavia to emigrate to Israel, to let them out. And Tito agreed in semi-liberal terms. All those that wanted to emigrate had to give up their citizenship. They had to give up all their real estate property to the country, but he allowed them to take with them their mobile belongings in known commercial quantities.
Like what kind of belongings? Furniture, things like that?
So furnitures we were able to take out. We even brought a small boat. Wow. With my stamp collection, I had to go and they checked to get approval to women. He allowed whether they had any type of jewelry, not in quantities, you know, but they had some bracelet or whatever. They provided them, so allowed them, and we're out to Israel. So my parents brought, if you see, the piano, this baby grand piano.
This one?
This one. This is a piano. My mother received it as a wedding present. Wow. Wedding present. Obviously, she married in I believe I was born in 36, so I believe in 1912. She received it, and all the rest, including the sculpture that belonged to my maternal grandparents, that were found also not far from the house of my grandfather, and with the aid of the court they got it back, like with the piano that we left in our house when we escaped in 41. In 45, when we returned, they found it in the recreation club of the workers of the post.
Wow.
And with the aid of the courts, they got it back.
I see.
So we brought all those things.
Right.
So I'm surrounded here in the house with many pieces that I know all are connected to my family and somehow to this incident or other during the Holocaust.
Shaul, you met your wife here. Your wife you met here. Your wife.
Yes.
Was she also a Holocaust survivor? Would she tell us a little bit about how you met her?
My wife, Sos, was born in Germany, in a town, in almost ancient town, Nordhausen. It is in the eastern part of Germany, in the area that is called the Harz.
Okay.
And I met her in a walk. In a walk organized by the Society of the Protection of the Nature, החברה להגנת הטבע. I met her in 1959. I fell in love with her, and in 1960 we got married. She went through the period of what is called in German Kristallnacht, Leil Habzolah, the night of the crystal.
Yes.
Organized pogroms against Jews and Jewish properties. So that on her, in the cemetery in Omer, on her grave, on the tomb, I let to be inscribed, because during all her life she mentioned she had that traumatic memories from that period. So on her tomb is engraved a survivor of the Kristallnacht.
Kristallnacht, wow. So you met her, you marry here, and you have one child.
We have one child.
And how many grandchildren?
And 3 grandchildren. The oldest one is now about 25. She was an officer in the Israeli military also. The second is 20. She served in the military, and the third is just about 15 years old.
How did you start your life in sports? How did you begin to do the race walking? You've been in the Olympics and everything.
I will first start with telling you, which is with a little humoristic end.
Okay.
Studying at the high school in Tel Aviv, I was not engaged in sports. Although the physical education teacher has organized maybe every year 1 or 2 runs along the seashore of Tel Aviv, and I was quite good, not the best, but quite good, but not any exceptional. And he was interested in those that were fit to play basketball, because he was the coach of Maccabi Tel Aviv in basketball, and later on also of the Israeli varsity team in basketball, and maybe a little in football. So those he was interested in them. The others he led them. Yeah.
Okay.
The others he let all the time just to do some gymnastics, in calisthenics a little, and gave me for 4 years the grade of let's say passing, and said you will never become an athlete or something, a sportsman.
Told you never become an
athlete. I met him several years later on, coming back from the Mexico Olympic Games as representative of the State of Israel in the Olympic Games. And as everybody that when he sees his ex-teacher, I went to him and I said hello and asked him whether he knows who I am. He said, yes, you are Dr. Ladany, the walker. When I asked him from where does he know me, he said, from the news media. I reminded him that I was his pupil at the high school, at Geula High School. He said, oh, nice. I met him again in, I believe, in 75. And I went, I was already here at Ben Gurion University, and I went to approach him and I said, Shalom, do you know who I am? He said, yes, you are Professor Ladany, the walker. And I asked him from where do you know me? He said, yes, you were my pupil. You were my pupil at Geula High School. At that time, I already said that you will become a champion athlete.
I see. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so in his mind.
In his mind, he kind of twisted it. Yeah. So how many?
Anyhow, I participated in various youth programs, Gadna. Gadna. Mm-hmm. So I have been at what is called Kurs Makim, Mefakdei Kitot, that from the Gadna at age 15, and there we ran, and I was put on selected as a diversity for the 10,000 meters run, without really training. But that was running, and then they started in Israel the 4-day marches, and I started to excel in them. It was not a competition, but the walkers competed among themselves who can walk much faster, and I started really to walk and train by myself longer distances until I finished those marches every day, the first. Then I used to walk back and forth. The Israeli press called me the king of the marches, and so on. So from the marches, I started really to enter the race walking competitions, and then the rest is the history. In United States, I have broken the oldest record in the book of records that existed in breaking the 50-mile US record. Slowly, I trained for it until not only that I have repeated breaking and improving my own US record until I have set a world record which still stands today.
Till today?
Yes.
Wow.
And I also was able to win later on the world 100-kilometer walking championship. So I was not only the best Israeli walker, and at that time, when whatever walking competitions we had, I was the best, but I was on the top of the long distance walkers in the world.
Wow.
I'm not saying that in everything I was the best, but
Right.
I was always on the top.
And you participated in the Olympics.
In 2 Olympic Games.
How was
and
that?
In Mexico 50, and in Munich also, and by various inner politics in Israel that prevented me to participate also in the 76 Olympic Games.
You were during the Munich massacre in Munich.
Munich was the massacre.
Can you tell a little bit about that?
It's a long story. It's a long story.
Okay.
Anyhow, I was not only the one that survived, as opposed to many of my roommates that escaped. I went to warn the chief of the mission.
What do you mean that because of political reasons you couldn't return?
Sorry?
What did you mean that because of political reasons you couldn't return to which?
Because I was older than others, and I was not able, did not accept dictates, and coaches could not be assigned to me by saying they need to provide me with professional instructions, or or I need somebody to translate the foreign languages to me that I should understand. So, and I criticized the official brass when they did not fulfill their duties.
I see.
So they did not like me.
I
They did not need me, and they did not like me.
How do you think about your experiences today? How did the life today reflect your past? Do you have anything that you want to tell us more about your life, yourself today, in reflection with your experiences through the Holocaust and your escapes?
First, all my life, I considered myself a proud Jew.
A proud Jew.
A proud Jew. And I have not changed that attitude. I believe that you shall fight for that, prevent any type of attempts to ridicule you, or to to attack you, words or physically. You have to react and to prevent it. To be a proud Jew, I don't mean that a Jew is one who has to pray all the time, or to pray at all, and I'm a non-believer. But still I am a Jew.
You grew up being secular, not religious.
I have been grown up as a secular Jew all my life. And I do what I want to do, not of fear that some unknown thing will punish me. In Passover, I eat matzos, not because that is something that I believe in it. This is an act of showing to myself that I belong to the Jewish people. Likewise, in Yom Kippur, if I fast, I don't care if it's exactly from that hour to that hour, and I do it just as to from tradition, and as an act of stating to myself I am a Jew. Nothing else. And I don't like parasites.
You don't like parasites? What do you mean by that?
Because they use the name of God to be parasites, instead of to fulfill their duties, they let the others to do that. That's in military, in protection to earn money for them, and they want just to get money for themselves instead of working hard to earn that.
I understand. You've been through so much in your life.
Sorry?
You've been through so much.
Yeah.
So much anti-Semitism. Did you experience after the war anti-Semitism also when you traveled around, when you went to, of course, you were in Munich, but in other ways, did you experience much anti-Semitism?
I experienced twice and reacted. Maybe behind my back, but I never experienced it because I have never hidden that I am an Israeli, and obviously as an Israeli, as a Jew. I remember two incidents that I had. One in '68, after the Mexico Olympic Games, after the opening ceremony of the games with my wife, we traveled in Mexico to see the various touristic attractions. I don't remember whether it was Chichen Itza or somewhere else where we went to some of the Mayan places. I remember I walked and I wore on my my jacket. On the back it was written Israel. So sports jacket, and my wife was walking beside me, and I remember it was a kind of a slope going down. We passed to, it is fattish people, not really fat, but not fit athletes, and I passed them. I heard one of them saying, swine. I remembered that the Germans used to call the Jews swines, pigs. Pigs.
This is 68? You heard that in 68?
68. I turned around. I noticed from the movement of the mount who was the person that said after the two. Grabbed his hand, twisted it, and asked him in German, asked him, did you say anything? He was surprised.
Because you spoke in German too.
He was surprised. He said, no. Yeah. And I still twisted him a little more and left him.
I see.
And left him and continued to walk. No words anymore.
No.
That's one. So I thought next time he won't dare to say something like this loudly, maybe thinking.
Maybe thinking about it.
Yeah. Second time, I participated many times in a walk from Schleswig to Viborg, Schleswig in Germany, Viborg in Denmark. In Denmark, I believe a 4-day or 7-day walk, and the organized by Danish walking club. There are many participants in it. The routine is that on the last day, next to the last day, we finish the walk at a certain town. Take the shower. Our belongings are there. We change our clothes, and for the last day, then there is a parade of those that participated, grouped according to the countries from where which they represent, with their flags. Into the parade goes up to the city hall in Viborg. And first time that I have been there, I remember that just after taking the showers, the organizers they told me, take the flag and go and stand there. I did not read, stand there in the front, they said, pointed their place. I did not read. They usually gave out every day a kind of a printed flyer of 1 or 2 pages of various things. I did not read the instructions. I stood there with the flag, At once somebody behind me pushes me strongly. I almost fell down. I knew it. I turned around. That was an Austrian walking, many times drunk. I told him, you drunken Nazi pig, if you do that again, I will kill you. And with the pole of the flag, I pushed it into his stomach.
Wow. What did he do? Leave?
No, sorry, he pushed me and said to me, I don't know what I said. When he pushed me, he said, do Jude, he said in German, du Jude, nicht vor Österreich. Du Jude, you Jew, not before Austria.
Oh.
Aber du Jude. He did not say, sorry, you should, it should be,
right.
We should group up according to the alphabet right. In English, or in you should stand with I later on. I went in the front. But as he's saying, do you there? You Jude. Therefore, I said it this way. And
good for you.
He never wanted to speak with me, but I never let him to walk faster than me. And then many of the Austrians tried to always to walk faster than me. I never let them.
I see. Good for you. Shaul, I wanted to ask you about how your family relates to your past, how your children, do they ask you about the Holocaust? Did they ask you about what you went through? How do they?
The first, they read, at least my daughter, read my autobiography. I have described there, not everything, but the major things. So she knows. Whether it is deeply rooted in the memory or not, that I don't know. But they are aware of it. The grandchildren, I believe, much less.
The grandchildren what?
At least I believe that the two granddaughters, they read the autobiography. I don't know whether they skipped over or just read the news things. Both my daughter and the granddaughters were with me in Bergen-Belsen.
You brought them there?
On memorial occasions. Because they had memorial meetings at Bergen-Belsen. They have been with me and at some of them. So I tried, I'm a collector, collect things. And I tried to try to make my daughter and the grandchildren also collectors. I was unable. They don't collect anything. But my daughter said that she wants to keep one of the collections, my Bergen-Belsen collection.
What is your Bergen-Belsen collection?
Sorry?
What is your Bergen-Belsen collection? What do you collect from there?
I have there are very few things, but I have there a few letters in and out, not necessarily my family's letters. There are some letters from the family of my late wife from Bergen-Belsen, but I have from some others with the postmarks used in Bergen-Belsen, the sender marks. I have various documents, documents out of Bergen-Belsen. I have some drawings. I have some paintings. I have
drawings that you did, or drawings from where?
From Bergen-Belsen.
Like who made the drawings?
Persons that were inmates that made the drawings. I have paintings made by some persons that were inmates and painted them later on.
Wow.
I have a collection of books, about Bergen-Belsen. Many books, and a few also some. I have a canteen from also the later period in Bergen-Belsen when it served as a camp from displaced persons. Displaced persons camp. From that period I have also many more, even publications and so on, which I have not been in the displaced persons camp, but it belongs to the story of Bergen-Belsen and the commemoration about Bergen-Belsen. Many items. Some of my of pieces from my Bergen-Belsen collection, I once have put on and organized an exhibition which was exhibited at the lobby of the main library of Ben Gurion University. The exhibition was opened by Shevach Weiss, Professor Shevach Weiss, that at that time was the Speaker of the Israeli Parliament.
I see.
Yeah, and I have also a collection of photographs made by the British Army, British Army photographers, that they photographed what they have seen when they have liberated the camp. These are, some of them are awful photographs to look at them.
You have them with you?
I have them, even here I have them at the house. I got it, I went to in Great Britain there is an Imperial War Museum, and it has a photographic annex. And I went to the photographic annex, and there I have seen the photographs, and out of the original films they made the prints. And so large photographs. Some of them I got them later on that were press photographs, but from the same type. I have those photographs, and I have some in the collection of books, including the Bergen trials. Like you had trials in other Nuremberg trials, you had the Bergen trials.
Really?
Bergen, they were held in Celle, but they called the Bergen trials. I have the book. I will be able to show you.
Okay.
And I said I organized an exhibition, and then part of that exhibit was exhibited within another exhibition, a philatelic exhibition. It was exhibited at the Binyanei Hauma in Jerusalem.
I see. You now that you mentioned Bergen-Belsen again, can I ask you? You said you remember the hunger, the cold, the tomato plant. Do you remember you were a little boy? Did you sleep with your parents? Were you separated? Did you feel full?
With the parents, and I remember how we slept in barracks, bunk beds, 3 stories. And I don't remember where I have been, whether in the lower echelon or the top. I don't remember.
Do you remember what did you do through the day? You were children. Did they make you work? Did you play? What did you do? You don't remember.
Don't remember.
Another question I wanted to ask you, thinking back, that I'm not sure. Were you in a ghetto? Were you ever in a ghetto?
Ghetto Budapest.
Ghetto Budapest. Well, how was the life there?
Sorry?
How was the life in a ghetto? How long were you there? What was it?
It was just prior to the deportation.
Prior to the deportation.
We have been in, I believe, in one room, 2 or 3 families.
Which year was that? That was 1944. Before you, okay. Do you have also? There was not enough food. What do you remember at that time?
I remember just before we left there to the assembly camp, to the Columbus Street Street camp. We went down. The concierge, the lady in charge of the of the building
Mm-hmm.
saw that we are trying to escape, and she called Hungarian detectives, and they started to beat up my father, and he was already laying on the ground, and kick him. He did not resist because probably he knew that if he will resist, they will kill him on the spot.
Of course.
He was saved by some German soldiers that earlier he paid them to come him paid him to come there and to take us to that Columbus Street camp. Against them, and they really saved him from the hands of those Hungarian detectives.
Okay.
And I was standing there and thought that not only was worried about my father, that they will start to kill me also.
What
And
an
then,
experience.
I did not say about the period that I was in monastery. That was also one of the...
You want to tell us about that?
Pardon?
Do you want to tell us about that?
I can tell you that I have never such traumatic experience like in my whole life, like in the monastery.
What about?
Not first, my parents tried to save me and my sisters. The sisters were given to some Gentile friends.
Okay.
And they thought they will put me in a monastery to save me. We had on my father and I on my coats, we had the yellow star. We got there by public transportation. Getting off, we took off the coats. I gave my coat to my father with turning it inside out, so that to hide the yellow star. My father also took off his coat. He took me to the monastery. I remember we got to the ball. There was an iron gate. He has kissed me several times. Did not say any words. He already told me earlier. He rang the bell. The gate opened. A monk appeared. My father said, I brought the child. The monk did not ask anything. Probably did not want to hear lies. Let me in, closed the door behind me, so I was in the door. I was alone inside with the monk. 8 years old, alone, and I knew, as was explained, not to reveal that I'm Jewish. And I had no problem when we went to the bathroom and so on to hide that I'm Jewish. But then on Sunday they said they are going to a capella, chapel, to pray, and I got panicked. I did not know what they are doing, how they behave in a chapel. They will reveal that I'm Jewish and they will kill me. And so I invented, I said, I'm not Catholic, I'm Protestant. And so on. I was never in such a fear in my entire life, that traumatic feeling. They did not do anything bad to me.
Right.
But it was inside that they will find out that I am Jewish and they will kill me.
It sounds like you were more fearful at the monastery than at Bergen-Belsen.
It was before Bergen-Belsen.
Right. Mm-hmm. And how long did you stay in the monastery?
A few weeks. I don't remember how many, what happened, that the Allies started to bomb Budapest, and bombs started to fall all over. My mother did not think in a rational way and thought that if I might be killed by a bomb, it's better to be together, and convinced my father to take me out of the monastery, and he took me out.
You were the only child in the monastery that it was hidden?
There were other children. I did not know
You
that.
don't know. Wow.
I had no communication with the others.
That sounds so scary.
It's possible that there were also other Jewish children hiding.
You had no
I
idea.
don't know.
Okay. Before we finish, is there anything you want to tell us? Any thoughts you want to tell us? Any reflections before we finish, and maybe you show some of your artifacts? Anything more that you want to share with us?
First, be a proud Jew. Never let anybody to intimidate you. And do anything possible that any of those atrocities that happened during the Holocaust should not repeat themselves again.
Yeah, thank you.
And therefore educate the people of what happened at that time.
Yes. Never forget.
Never forget.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
כן, זה ציור.
אתה
רוצה באנגלית או לא?
באנגלית. אם אתה יכול, if you come in English.
Oh, that's a painting made by Pesach Irshai. That he made it in Switzerland out of memory. Dedicated in Hungarian, written it to my father. And it's written just in the lower row in Hungarian that he should not forget Bergen-Belsen, nor of me meaning of Irshai.
He's the one who painted the picture.
Yes, but this I see it daily from my den.
Just look at it.
At least, because this is a description, look, of barracks and the Barbet.
That's the way it looked then.
Yes.
Okay.
My Bergen-Belsen book collections.
Oh, wow.
Here. All about Bergen-Belsen.
All of these books are about Bergen-Belsen.
Yes.
I see.
Here and here also.
Here.
Belsen in Hebrew, or look, this is, I believe, the Belsen trials, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
With the Belsen trials. There we go. כאן למעלה יש קופסה, אתה רוצה ממש את הצילומים האלה, אז אני צריך להביא משהו. לא בטוח שאני אראה אותו. רק תסתכל מה יש בפנים, רגע. או, זה אצלי, אני הפלתי משהו?
לא, זה לא אתה. זה תמונות.
אני לא בטוח שזה זה.
נסתכל?
כן, תסתכלי מה זה, אני לא חושב שזה זה. לא. יכולה לא. לא, זה זה. כן. רגע. רגע, כאן רואים יותר טוב. רואים קצת תמונות כאלה. לא.
אתה תראה למצלמה. תגיד מה זה? Tell about it. Look at the picture. Show the picture to the...
First, an explanation and then the... these are photographs that were made by the British military when they liberated Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, and the original photos are in the Imperial Museum in London in their photographic annex, and there from the original films they made the prints, and I added just below the inscription as they were written and given at that time by the photographer. I believe that this is one of the amazing photographs I will show you, and I asked some movie producers that made movies on me and mentioned Bergen-Belsen, and they always wanted to show some mild pictures about Bergen-Belsen. And I said, no, you should try to show the shocking pictures, not the mild pictures, shocking pictures that the people should know. Here you have a few shocking photographs. I believe the most shocking photograph in my mind is this one. What you see here, a bulldozer driven by a British soldier that cannot bear the smell from the corpses. So therefore, he puts something on his face to protect his nose, the smells reaching his nose, and he's bulldozing not earth, but naked corpses.
Okay.
What the British photographer gave the caption to the picture, which I added here. What's written out there? Can you tell me?
Okay. Bulldozer pushing bodies into the grave. בסדר, יש לנו...
טוב, למטה אתה רוצה?
בבקשה, אתה יכול לרדת. בבקשה בוא. בבקשה, let's go.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this.
Well, I have here trophies, not all the trophies I have, because there is no more room in this here. And if I remove something, usually many other trophies fall down. So I have some trophies and some other plaques all over the house. But here I have a few, and for example, that are of special interest to me and special memories. One, here I have something standing with, it is wooden with some marks on it. This is the prize that I got for the 50-mile walk in the United States, where I have broken several times the United States 50-mile record. And then finally, I have set the world record. So it's all on it. Then I have somewhere, just a moment, do you see here a Viking somewhere looking trophy? My eyesight is not good anymore. No, I don't. It should be somewhere here. But maybe it is very, very special. This is from the London Brighton. The London Brighton was the blue ribbon of race walking events in the world. They started in around 1870 or 1880, whatever, about 52.5 miles from London, from the Big Ben. Big Ben used to be the starter. Right. Yeah, and up to Brighton, there on the sea, and I won that London to Brighton 3 times with and my winning time was the best winning time ever there. One of my winning times. I participated. They have twice held the Centennial Walk, 100 years of it, because once it was organized by the Surrey Walking Club, and the other time, the first out of the what they call the first one was by an other club. They have celebrated the Centennial Walks for both of them. I walked in them too, and this is a silver cup. I have, as I told you, won it many times, 3 times in a row. So I have it, and with many of the names of the previous winners on it, including one or several that have won Olympic gold medals. And then what is hidden here behind in a box with a velvet covered box, but the Olympic rings on it. I received from the International Olympic Committee the Baron Pierre de Coubertin medal, which is the most prestigious Olympic medal for my sports achievements, which are not in the Olympic distances. And it's there inside that box there. So these are very unusual trophies to me. I can mention that I have won the 100-miler, the 100-kilometer in Switzerland. That were the world championship, but I have participated in them 3 times. The first time when I won it, I have received not a trophy, but I have received something unusual. Please come with me.
The last one.
This is this.
What is that?
That is for the 100-kilometer World Championship winning time in Lugano, Switzerland. Then when the second time, sorry, I want to say, the first time I finished there in third place. I got this big one. The second time I finished second place, but then the trophy was even smaller, or just versa, or maybe this was the third one, then the previous one was the second, and when finally I won it, it was much smaller trophy.
Thank you, Shaul. I think we're done.
עוד משהו שלא אמרתי, אבל כדאי... אבל... זה זכה, הצילום הזה זכה בהרבה פרסים.
ממש הצילום יפה.
יאללה.
רגע, בבקשה.
אוקיי, ספר לנו קצת
Yeah,
על זה.
The International Olympic Committee awarded me the maybe the most prestigious award or medal that they are awarding, the Baron Pierre de Coubertin medal. Baron Pierre de Coubertin was the one that initiated the modern Olympic Games. And they awarded me that medal for my sports achievements that were not in the Olympic distances. Olympic distances were the 20 kilometers and the 50 kilometers, and then I excelled in the 50 miles and the 100 kilometers. But they awarded, and this is the certificate. It's a very rare medal, much rarer than the ordinary Olympic medals. בבית כשעושים לא רק מה שעושים, גם משהו קצת הומוריסטי, אז זה הומוריסטי. אז אם לא זה. שני הערכים, מכירה את זה. יש ייחוד את התמונה גם למעלה.
אפשר להסתכל על מה התמונות האלו? זה לגמרי שונה מכל דבר.
לא, זה לקישוט. הבית לא היה מוזיאון אף פעם. אז זה ירשתי מהאבא שלי. זה צייר יהודי הונגרי מאוד מפורסם, הרמן ליפוט. יש עוד כמה ציורים שלו למעלה מתקופה אחרת. אבל שעם דמעה.
כן, לא התכוונתי לזה.
כן. לזוז?
אתה יכול לבוא לגרסיאלה?
כן. יש שם דברים שאת תראי מפה, סליחה, סמל של מדינת ישראל.
כן.
סמל מדינת ישראל מופיע עליהם.
לא.
זה מהליכה של מפריז לברוסל, למעשה לעיירה בפרברי ברוסל, טוביז.